Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by a man who will say something nice about the Raiders in this episode. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing good. Maybe I won't. We'll see.
Yeah, well, it's a good teaser. Who knows?
Yeah, we shall see indeed. I'm doing good. I got an Android phone this past week, and honestly, you would have thought I committed war crimes or something like that. Like the
What do you
amount
mean?
of visceral reactions that I got to now having an Android and the inconvenience of people having to send text messages instead of iMessage. You would have thought I broke their brains or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, people. I have an iPhone. People who have I used to have an Android for a while. I finally got an iPhone, and I don't know. It's fine. They're both good phones, or they're both good types of phone companies.
Listen, I didn't want to support big corporations anymore, so I got a Google Pixel 8, okay?
Right. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Supporting the little guy.
Yeah, small business wins again. But no, other than that, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well as well. It's a lot of Kyle. I'm exhausted, quite frankly. I have been working nonstop, and then I'm going on. It's my Stephanie's sister's graduation coming up, so I'm going up to Wisconsin, which I'm going to talk to you about. We might have to schedule reschedule the podcast next week. But I have to preload record videos for that week while I'm going to be gone. So I'm exhausted.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You
Mhm.
do all your team grades, team recaps, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if anyone who wants to hear more about any team that we talk about, we're probably just going to touch on the first round and maybe some, we'll slightly touch on some other stuff, but we're going to
A lot of touching.
yeah. But if you want to hear more of an in-depth recap, I kind of talked about every pick, which took me way too long, but we got through it and we're ready to go.
Perfect. All right, good plug, and we're ready to do it. Let's talk about the draft.
Yeah, let's just get into it. I have no real particular order in which way we could go about this, but let's maybe I don't know. We could try to go in chronological order. Maybe pick this. We'll figure it out as we go. Let's start off with the Chicago Bears. Let's just go with let's go in order of when the teams pick. Let's do it that way. I thought this was a really strong Bears draft. Obviously, you and I are both big fans of Caleb Williams, but I think we knew they were going to get Caleb Williams going in. The real I think pleasant surprise. Romeo Dunze falling to them at 9 felt like a really nice. I don't think he was either one of our favorite receivers, but at least for me, him falling to number 9 felt like a pretty big steal to try and help out their young quarterback. Don't know why they drafted a punter when you only have 5 picks. That was stupid, but other than that, pretty good draft.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did like the draft. Not a lot of picks, so there's not too much to comment on, but I think everybody kind of expected what was going to happen with pick number 1, and I think they didn't overthink it and did the right thing. Obviously, the pre-draft talk back in January was, do they give Justin Fields another shot or do they take Caleb Williams? They took Caleb Williams. I think it's the right move. Even beyond, if you question Caleb Williams' talent, I think if you're not 100% sold on Justin Fields, resetting that rookie contract and getting that 5 years reset again is the biggest win of that. So that's why I think it's a right move to go with Caleb Williams. Anyway, even if you don't love him as a prospect, we both love him as a prospect. It's the right move in my opinion. Odunze at number 9 is good value. There are a lot of mock drafts. A lot of mock drafts did not have a receiver going down at number 9. So being able to get a player of that caliber, that's a really good receiving core for next season. Being able to get that is impressive. So that is a good 1-2 punch with the top 10 picks. And honestly, if you're trading back from the number 1 pick, this is probably as well as you could have done for trading back with the number 1 pick. Getting a player DJ Moore, getting Roma Dunze, getting Caleb Williams. I mean, that's an incredible haul for. I mean, unfortunately for Bryce Young, based on what Bryce Young is, that's an incredible haul. I think that's just an incredible haul for the number 1 pick in general. And then, I mean, even beyond that, though, I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to get it wrong, but the Kieran is someone that people were saying is a sleeper in this draft, a sleeper tackle in this draft, and they got him at 75. I thought that's good value, too. So, yeah, I thought that was all really good stuff for Chicago, and, not a ton of picks, but I thought they nailed all of them.
Yeah, it's always good. Why don't more teams go out and just draft trade the first overall pick for next year's first overall pick plus more picks? Seems like a good strategy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hindsight is always 2020, but the hindsight looks really good in this one.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to number 2. Well, this is one where I wonder how hindsight will look on this. Let's talk some balls. The Commanders, who they took some swings here. I mean, really the big swing of the Jaden Daniels decision, which I think you and I are both Drake May fans. Although I think you're also a big fan of Drake May not getting taken here. Given we'll talk about your team at number 3 in just a second. But Daniels could still be a really good player. They got, Johnny Newton and with pick 36, which is a pretty good value. And then even Mike Stanchel at pick 50, I thought was pretty good. Then a couple of weird ones as well. They added Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey. That's fun. But as a whole, again, I'm not sure. We're not really doing grades or anything, but as a whole, this was not my favorite draft just because I would have rather had Drake May. But I did think they still got some. If Daniels turns out to be the better quarterback, I think this will end up being a great draft.
Yeah, I mean this looks good on paper. If Daniels is the guy, then that's kind of the deal with all these quarterbacks, right? Like if JJ McCarthy stinks, just bringing him up. If Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy stink, that draft's terrible. If those two guys are good or great, then that's an amazing draft. That's
Yeah.
these quarterbacks dictate so much of it, especially when you're picking them in the first round. So that's what it's just going to be judged on. We were a little, I wasn't that low on Daniels. You were a lot lower than I was, I think, but I did have him QB3 pretty significantly behind Drake May, so I do question that a little bit. I think the most interesting thing about Jaden Daniels is in this storyline and him going number 2. It's a completely different regime, so I take it with a grain of salt, but this guy had so many Robert Griffin III comparisons,
Mhm.
and this franchise just had to live through that scenario where Robert Griffin III looks excellent year 1, takes some bad hits, ends up basically out of the league because of injuries, and didn't really develop beyond that. And I just think it's interesting that they went with that route again, based on the history of that and the history of that player at this position. So I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out. Not to mention, uh, the most interesting thing I thought about this first round too, not only that was I think they did the 10 oldest quarterbacks drafted in the first round over the last decade, and 3 of the top 10 are from this draft now because it was Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Penix are the 3 of the 10 oldest quarterbacks taken in the first round in the last 10 years. And
Gotcha.
there are a few hits there, but outside of Baker Mayfield, there hasn't been a lot of success with taking older quarterbacks in this spot. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out too.
Yeah, they have a super chat. NFC North, best division in football. I mean, sleeping on the NFC South.
You think so?
We got 5 quarterbacks now.
I think,
maybe it's
yeah, I
still
might.
just up to 4 at this point.
Yeah, I might still be sleeping on them. Don't worry.
This is our year.
NFC North does look good though. That is not going to be a fun division to play in.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, agree with everything you said. Jaden Daniels, his ceiling is Robert Griffin III. His floor is Robert Griffin III.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. What was with the Newton thing? Is it just because it's a big defensive tackle, so he falls to 36?
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. That was very weird. I thought his. I mean, he was 24th on the consensus big board, so the NFL was already a little lower on him. But I felt like a lot of people like I feel like a lot of really smart football people and us all through. I'll phrase it that way. Thought that Johnny Newton should have been drafted a lot higher than 24th. So that could, I don't know. That was weird.
It was very interesting to see play out. And I don't know, there was a point because the Patriots had the 34th pick in
Hmm.
obviously the second pick of the second round. And I was just I mean, it's not really a need for us, but just take the guy. I was just
Yeah, sure.
I think he's that talented. I thought that was weird. I guess it probably is just the defensive tackle thing, which I don't know. That still feels weird to me because we've seen other defensive tackles go in the first round. I just would have taken him.
Well, and I mean, he also wasn't the first defensive tackle to go in the, we'll talk about the Falcons in a second, but they went with a different guy. So, yeah, very,
Yeah.
very bizarre. Let's talk about your team, New England Patriots. Your dreams come true. They do get Drake May. Maybe you're holding out hope for Williams to fall up far too. That didn't happen, but still, get Drake May, add a guy like Jalen Polk in the second round to hopefully help out with that. Even add Javon Baker, who could be maybe a good depth receiver for you. Joe Milton. So to kind of do we brought up RG3, maybe doing the RG3 and Kirk Cousins in the same draft type thing of let's get another guy while we're trying to develop May. We'll try to develop him too. Maybe, a backup plan. Kyle, what were your thoughts on this?
They did the right thing. There's a lot of rumors of trading back. And, if there was an opportunity to trade back to like New York with 6 or something like that, like if they blew us away with an offer, I think I wouldn't have been too mad. Like ending up with like a Malik Neighbors player, I wouldn't have been that mad. But I really wanted a quarterback first and foremost. And I would have talked to myself in other situations, but I thought that was, they did the right thing. They got hopefully the franchise quarterback. We'll see how it works out. I'm a believer in Drake May. I'm a believer in the arm talent, the physical gifts. I think those are rare that what he has, and I think that's going to be an awesome pick. So I really like that. I like the 2 receivers they got. The funny thing to me, again, is, speaking of draft history with Robert Griffin III, it felt like the two things that I kept hearing about Jalen Polk is he's a lot like Puka Nacua and he's a lot like N'Keal Harry. So good thing the Patriots picked him. That should work out.
Right.
But he, it is a very similar thing where he is very good at, downfield, making contested catches. He's got great hands, doesn't get a ton of separation. And I do worry about those separation guys sometimes when they get to the NFL level, but we'll see on Jalen Polk. Javon Baker, I do like him. He's got speed to burn. I think it's going to be I think those are going to be pretty good picks. I think those are really nice pickups. I really like that group. I wasn't a Joe Milton fan. We talked about that on the quarterback ranking podcast, but whatever, take him that late. He's hopefully going to be the backup or something like that, could develop into a nice backup. So I kind of like some of those qualities. I like that. The offensive lineman felt a little bit reachy. And I think if I were to have one complaint about this draft, is even the tackle that they took doesn't play left tackle. So left tackle is a interesting position to look at heading into the offseason. They got a bunch of like stopgap options and quite frankly, kind of backup level players. I don't know who's going to start at left tackle this season. So that's a question that I wished would have been answered in the draft, but draft didn't break our way too. So we'll see how it goes.
Sandra in the chat says Kyle is an attractive man.
Look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
No.
All right, let's move on. Number 4. Who picked 4? That was the Cardinals. Yes, of course, Cardinals. A big fan of the Cardinals like first pick, the Marvin Harrison. I mean, kind of a no-brainer, kind of a slam dunk pick, really. But again, we see teams screw up the slam dunk picks all the time. So good job doing that. Didn't love the rest of this draft. They got some players, but I just, I wasn't crazy about Darius Robinson. Even Max Milton was a little early for me. Didn't love the Trey Benson pick. So as a whole, I thought there were a lot of reaches across the board. Now I had a lot of picks, which I liked. So they made sure they got, I think they had like 11 picks. So that's really good. 11 picks, Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to get a lot of value here. I just didn't love all of their selection.
I can agree with that. Yeah, some of it felt like reaches. I do like that they went, this is the team. We talked about it a lot last season. I don't want to harp too much on the Cardinals last season. This was a really bad defensive backfield last year, right? So I do appreciate them going pretty heavy defensive backfield and kind of addressing that need. So they got a lot of guys back there. So hopefully some of those guys may be able to turn into starters and compete. So I like that group. I'm with you. I wasn't that crazy about Darius Robinson. I'm just not a huge fan of kind of one-trick pony defensive linemen, and he just kind of tries to play bully ball, it seems like. But he is physically gifted, so we'll see. But I do like the Harrison pick. I think that makes a ton of sense given that they, lost their best receiver in the offseason. They desperately needed to address it anyway before they even lost their best receiver. So getting the best receiver in the draft makes a ton of sense, and I am excited to at least watch that. Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. should be fun to watch. Everything else, we'll see. It's a long way to go. I don't anticipate this team being good next season, but they can at least build off that.
Yeah, listen, could have been a lot worse for the Cardinals. They could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse, I think. So that's kind of how I view
Yeah, I think so.
how you nailed the pick you had to nail. Let's move on. Let's go to the Chargers. Why don't we? Pick number 5. They do decide to go with Joe Alt. This is where the draft began, right? Top 4 picks. We kind of knew those 4 were going to go there. They do get Lad McConkey in round 2, so they did get a receiver. They actually, I believe, traded up a couple spots to get him. Junior Colson, a guy who I liked. I thought they, could be a good starting linebacker. So hey, getting 3 starters, if your top 3 picks, that's pretty good. Yeah, I thought this was again not the flashiest draft, but I think a good one. I know you're not a crazy Joe Alt fan, but for me, I liked it.
I still had him in my top 10. I just liked Olufashanu more.
Uh-huh.
But I understand it. I mean, he's a giant. I could see him be pretty good. This is a very Jim Harbaugh draft. This is a mean person draft. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is I'm trying to establish an identity here. I built, I got an offensive tackle, I got a middle linebacker, and I got a strong defensive lineman with 3 of my first 4 picks. And then I got this this kind of creative slot receiver who does really well at getting open, right? So this is a very Jim Harbaugh draft. The only thing they missed was Blake Corum. Like if they got Blake Corum, Jim Harbaugh is probably just hard as a rock thinking about this team. But yeah, I thought they did well. I thought this team needs a ton of players too. So I don't mind at all what they did here, and I thought they definitely went with. This team is going to look a lot different next season, and this is another team that I think is going to be a multi-year project. And this looks like I'm building an identity draft.
Is it concerning at all that it seems like they want to be such a run-heavy team? That's why they couldn't draft Alou Fashanu, even if they liked him more, because they're never going to pass block.
I mean, that's kind of what I anticipate with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but is that a concern with with the marriage of you have Herbert, but now becoming a run-heavy team?
Yeah, I think that was my concern before he got the job. I mean, he's a good coach. I'm not going to try and say Jim Harbaugh's not a good coach. He is not the most offensively progressive, I guess, as I'll say. And
all I'm trying to say is, it's been a decade since we've seen him in the NFL. Like I feel every time a new someone we consider to be a good coach, which I do consider Harbaugh to be a good coach, comes in, it's like, well, we have to just defend every move. Like, I'm just a little concerned about, like, are you building your team the right way right now?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Would you have gone Malik Neighbors 5?
Yeah, I would have. But I don't hate Joe Alt either. I don't think it's. At a certain point, you are going to have to address the receiver position more than just with a 1 second round pick, though.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I don't think Jerry Rice's kid is going to do all too much either. I didn't think he was that good, honestly.
Yeah,
I watched a lot of USC last year.
Yeah, gotcha. Right. Yeah. Let's move. Let's go to the team that got Malik Neighbors. Go to the Giants, who people are wondering, are they going to go with a quarterback here? They wouldn't have had to trade. They decided not to. They decided to stick where they're at. They get Malik Neighbors at 6. Also draft a guy like Tyler Nubin, who I liked, at 47. Another good job. You didn't screw it up draft.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all their picks here. I even like Andrew Phillips that they got at 72. So I like their picks. My question is like this. So should they have drafted a quarterback just in general? Is it a mistake to not go quarterback at all? Because are we really going to do the Tommy DeVito thing in week 6 again? Like that's the plan?
Well, are we just assuming Daniel Jones is going to get injured again?
Or gets benched again? I don't know.
Well, if he's ever gotten benched.
Well, I think he could get benched. I think he could get injured. I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced this is going to work. And I don't know. For a team for a front office and coaching staff that everyone was saying is on the hot seat at this offseason, I feel like I would have at least tried one contingency plan. Like, why not go get a Spencer Rattler just in case? Something like that, right? I feel like getting nobody may also be a mistake, even if you didn't think they should have got JJ McCarthy 6th overall.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that would have made, draft a guy probably there would have been some logic to it. I do think, though, for me, part of why I like not going quarterback here is Daniel Jones. You owe him $40 million this year, no matter what, and you're going to have to pay him $20 million next year if you cut him after the season. So I kind of just feel like let's just, we're burning this year. Let's wait a year before we start that, the 4 years of cheap rookie contract. Let's just get a quarterback next year.
Do the fans know that they're burning this year?
I think if they're smart, yeah. I mean, fans of every team is convinced that this is the year that they're going to put it all together. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can easily sell to the fans. Oh no, we got a receiver now. We're good.
Yeah. Is this the best receiver Daniel Jones has ever had?
I
Day
think. I
one?
mean, are you saying you think he's better than Kenny Galladay?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, yeah, I think so.
Darius
I would say
Slayton.
yes. I think he's better than Isaiah Hodgins. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably fair. So
Uh-huh.
it's a good pick. I like him. A lot of the reports were saying they were really aggressive to try and get up to number 3. I would have liked that too, obviously depending on the compensation. But yeah, I mean, I think if there wasn't a trade there, there wasn't a lot of trades that we were actually anticipating in the first round. If there wasn't a trade there, then I'm pretty content with getting the second best receiver in this class. Who, like I said, he'd be number 1 in a lot of receiving classes.
Yeah. Let's go to the Titans, who I think definitely with their number 7 overall pick drafted for need, in my opinion. Maybe they just feel like JC Latham, but I thought he was projected to go 19th. He goes at 7. That's a pretty big reach there. Also Tamondre Sweat was projected to go 73rd. They get him at 38. So they're getting their guys. I get that they wanted to protect their quarterback, whoever that ends up being, I suppose. I don't know. I would have much rather gone with Romeo Odunze here. I think that, quite frankly, there was at least two other offensive linemen I had higher on my board. I think there was actually a couple I had higher on my board. I like Latham. I think he's a solid prospect, but it was a reach for me. This is an F, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, this is a top 10 pick, right? And I would have addressed differently. I mean, I know they got Calvin Ridley, but I know they have DeAndre Hopkins. I still probably would have liked another receiver, honestly. I really would have. And yeah, maybe Latham comes in and is good, but like you said, I don't understand. I would have taken Fashanu in a heartbeat. Like you can entertain for me the alt is better than Fashanu thing, but I think Fashanu clears this guy, right? And I think he's a better player than Latham. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But they obviously tapped him as their guy. I just disagree with it. I thought they could have got someone else, even a guy like, I think I would have justified Brock Bowers even a little bit too. I think they need another playmaker in this offense.
Well, I mean, yeah, and forget about need. It's just like I just think you got a worse player. Like I think you could have got I think that getting a tackle is probably their biggest need, but you got a worse player to do it. And I agree. I mean, I do also like how you said you'll entertain the idea of maybe Joe Alt could be better than Fashanu, as if that's not like the consensus opinion.
Well, based on my opinion, it's wrong. So.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the draft was fine by the Titans. And I'm interested in Tamondre Sweat. Certainly a gamble that could pay off. But so it's still not the pick I think I would have made there. But I at least get that one a little more. You could argue his talent is 38th best. But yeah, not my favorite draft.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I had some questions, but once again, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't think I'll ever understand what Tennessee does. They do their own thing. I'll watch, I'll comment, but any opinion on Tennessee for me is probably wrong because I don't get it.
Speaking of things we don't understand, number 8, the highlight of the draft. This is what we're here to talk about. The Atlanta Falcons go with Michael Penix Jr. at 8, despite the fact that they just paid Kirk Cousins a lot of money. A lot of people are saying wrong things about Cousins' contract. Essentially, it's the next 2 years are pretty much fully guaranteed. After 2 years, they could get rid of him, but they'd still have about $25 million in dead cap. So it's almost like a 2.5 year guaranteed contract here. They have stated that part of what they want to do is, recapture the Jordan Love magic, essentially, that the Packers did. Not sure if that's exactly the best plan here. Also, passing on Johnny Newton in the second round to get a defensive lineman who's projected to go in the third round. An interesting choice as well by Atlanta. Kyle, what the hell are the Falcons doing?
I'm just as baffled as you are. It was shocking at the time. Now, so I was watching the Pat McAfee draft thing.
Okay.
Because I wanted to hear Bill Belichick's thoughts.
Of course.
This is my first time ever watching the Pat McAfee show. I don't know any of the characters. I did hear AJ Hawk talk for the first time, so that was interesting.
Okay.
But they had this Mel Kiper guy, somebody impersonating Mel Kiper That was pretty funny. And then Bill Belichick, I thought had some good tangents, all that kind of stuff. I do think McAfee's funny sometimes. It's just not
Mhm.
my full cup of tea. Anyway, besides the point, they had this like magician guy on the show, and like there was something about he had an envelope that had like the correct picks from like 8 through 15, and he put like Michael Penix on there, and apparently that was right. It was the most bizarre thing ever. And like Bill Belichick was like sitting on his phone, like while he was talking it through this. It was the most bizarre like thing I've ever seen. And I was just as confused as everybody else about what was going on. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a bad pick. Like, I think it's just that simple. This is an F.
What a
Like,
tangent.
yeah, I know. I had to tell the whole story to set it up, but like,
No, you're
yeah,
good.
like, okay, sure. Set up the next quarterback. Here's my issues with the logic. Number
Mhm.
one, the Packers used a 24th or whatever overall pick on Jordan Love, which, yeah, I mean, you still want to get a starter with the 20th pick, but top 10 picks should be cherished. Like, top 10 picks, you're looking for impact guys almost right away, right? Immediately. And at minimum, because of the contract you signed in the offseason, you're not looking for your top 10 pick to start for 3 years. Number two, your top 10 pick, who you don't plan on starting for 3 years, is going to be 26 years old when he starts a football game. This
Mhm.
isn't minor league baseball. Like, you don't do that in the NFL. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's going to be 26 on the third year of his 5-year rookie contract. You're basically wasting the rookie contract for a guy who's going to be almost 30 by the time you're looking at an NFL a contract extension, if he's good enough to play. Like, I had questions with Michael Penix because of the age and injury thing. I think top 10 for a team that already has a starting quarterback for the next 2 years is kind of insane. I think that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I'm okay with him, taking him as a backup and saying we're going to do this a slow process because we want to give him some chance to learn and get better. But not for a team that just paid $160 million for a quarterback. If it was a team that had like Derek Carr or something like that, I'd be like, sure, take him as a backup for a year or two. Don't pay a guy $160 million for this guy to start at 26. That seems baffling.
Well, that's why I'm with you where it's like I think you could kind of defend the Michael Penix pick. I mean, there's several reasons why people dislike the pick, right? First, some people just don't think he's worth the number 8 overall pick. But if that's what you think, then like that's the end of the discussion. Like then it's a bad pick. But like if we're gonna say he is worth the 8th overall pick, I think you could even make the argument like if the Falcons front office, like if they got fired the day before the draft, new front office enters, and the new front office takes Penix, I think you can maybe make the argument there's some logic there of, I do like Penix as a player. Cousins is coming off an Achilles injury. We don't know what's going to happen. You want a quarterback in the future. Okay, fine. What doesn't make sense to me is if you wanted to go Penix, why do you give Kirk Cousins the contract? Why do you the only way this makes sense to me, the only argument you can really, I think, use to justify it is if you legitimately believe a quarterback sitting for multiple years is the best way to makes their odds of being successful like significantly greater. And like it would have to be significantly greater. And I just haven't seen any evidence to support that.
Yeah. I agree. No,
Mm-hmm.
I just think I think it's a bizarre move, and I even then like I guess if this is the guy you tab, this is the guy you tab. I understand why teams would like him more than JJ McCarthy. I think I liked him more than JJ McCarthy just off pure talent. But like, if you're going to go and try and like kind of groom your next quarterback, why wouldn't you take the younger guy too? I mean, he's going to be 24 in 7 days.
Yeah. Well, the thing that makes the least sense to me is like Penix, like one of my selling points for him was he's an NFL ready guy. Like that's one of the part of what I liked about him. It's like he's not a develop like he's Jordan Love was like the whole issue with him was his talent was off the charts, but like he was like so inconsistent. And so like the whole point was like, well, we're gonna try to work on these issues, like and let him sit like Penix, like what are you working on with him?
Yeah, I don't know. He's accurate. He has good ball placement. He has a good arm. He can make all the throws. The worry for him is health, right, and the injury concerns. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's an interesting call. This team has been interesting with its asset usage in the top 10 the last 4 years, hasn't it? So
Yeah.
I mean, this offense better be really good. That's all I got to say because, um, you know, I think that there are some defensive players that they could have used a lot of defensive help, and I quite frankly didn't like this pick, and I thought there was better players on the board, like you said, when they made their second defensive pick. So definitely very bold. We'll see how it works out for Atlanta.
Well, let's move on. Kyle, we might have to power through some of these because we're 30 minutes into the show. We've only done 8 teams, so we're we're really not exactly flying along here. Although Vikings are a team we do have to spend a minute on. JJ McCarthy, they trade up a spot. Clearly, the quarterback needy teams did not expect the Penix selection whatsoever. I think the Vikings were like, what's okay? We got to trade up. This is an issue. Trying to make sure they get McCarthy. They do. They did not have to trade their other first round pick to get him. So they end up trading up again in the first round, getting Dallas Turner. So they end up with, the 8th and the 9th projected players in this draft with Turner and McCarthy with picks 10 and 17. That's pretty good value. The other picks are whatever. But yeah, if I'm I think lower on Turner than most, but I still like him at 17. I think you and I are both kind of the same with JJ McCarthy of like an interesting prospect. If this hits, this could be a franchise altering draft for the Vikings.
Yeah, that they did a good job. Obviously, the biggest stories were losing Kirk Cousins and losing Danielle Hunter, right? Those were the two biggest things of the offseason. Well, They addressed it with their first 2 picks. So, I think that's good business. You're kind of resetting your contracts with those 2 positions too. So I think it's a good job. I guess the question is going to be, so are we doing JJ McCarthy next year, or are we doing Sam Darnold? I guess
you got to go with JJ McCarthy, I think.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I thought they did a really good job. I thought those 2 players make a lot of sense. They were the 2 biggest needs they had because they just lost those 2 players. So yeah, I like this. I like this draft, and I thought they got aggressive. Maybe you could have argued maybe a little too aggressive moving up like that, but at the same time, I thought they did fine.
Yeah, I think that's the only critique you would have. But hey, I mean, again, money. We're talking about the difference between the Falcons and the Vikings. The Vikings basically saved, I don't know, $70 million by not paying Hunter and Cousins and drafting their replacements. Now, would a replacements be as good as those guys? That's the dilemma. But if they do, that's what can turn you from a fringe playoff team to a Super Bowl contender.
Where would you rather be right now? Caleb with Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and who's the third guy? Like DJ Moore, or Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson.
I think I'd rather be not with the Bears.
Just history.
Yeah, I think that's just the Vikings have had good quarterbacks. That's not their issue. Just as long as I'm not trying to kick field goals, I'm okay.
Those are pretty good receiver situations for rookie quarterbacks to walk into with top 10 picks.
Yeah, I think so. Not exactly New England.
No, that's a lot different.
Yeah. Let's move on to New England's rival, the New York Jets, who picked at 11. They went with Kyle's favorite person on earth, Alou Fashanu. Also, had a couple other interesting selections. Don't really get drafting a quarterback. It's kind of funny again with obviously the Rodgers stuff, but whatever. It's pick 171, not 24. Got a receiver. Did draft a couple of halfbacks, so I didn't love I thought some of the other picks were a little weird, but hey, they got the tackle. I was also a little surprised they didn't go with Fuaga, who can play both guard and tackle, going with just the pure tackle, but he is the best pass blocking, tackle in the class. They want to protect Rodgers. I understand it. So yeah, I'm assuming this is your favorite draft class out of any of them.
I liked obviously that pick. I liked him at 11. I think that's good value. I like Malachi Corley too at 65. He was a guy I thought could be pretty interesting. I think he's going to be a good slot receiver for that team. All of a sudden with him, you got Mike Williams. You're not relying so much on like the Allen Lazard, stuff like that. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, I think can be pretty interesting. And yeah, I think that's a good draft. So, you're protecting yourself for the eventual Tyron Smith injury, which is probably going to happen because it always happens. And I think they did a really good job with it.
I guess my one critique is if we're saying like, okay, we got to protect ourselves for the Tyron Smith, maybe did we have to spend $20 million on him then? Just probably throwing it out there. If that's what we're doing, like if we're like we have to address this with our, I don't know. I think it's fine, but it's just something I thought of.
This is definitely an Aaron Rodgers driven draft. You get the offensive tackle, you get a wide receiver, you get this big beefy running back. I mean, come on now. Like they went all offense until the last 2 picks.
Yeah, which honestly not a bad idea given what happened last year. So I
Yeah.
understand it. Let's go to the Broncos, who another if this hits is a franchise altering draft. I thought it was fun going with Bo Nix and Troy Franklin. I actually thought that was smart. Like he fell to 102, projected to go early second round. So that was get the guy they played together in college makes sense. You know, Bo Nix is not your favorite prospect. I'm higher on him than you are, but I'm still not a crazy Bo Nix fan. I had him as kind of a fringe first rounder, but I think I'll defend this a little bit before you rip it to shreds. I suppose I think that there is a more of a high floor with Bo Nix, and I do think there is the potential he could give you good quarterback play for the next 4 years on a cheap deal.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, I mean, I'm not as big of a fan. I mean, they referenced, the stories we heard post draft were that he was the most accurate college football quarterback ever. I don't think he had to make a lot of difficult throws. That was kind of my opinion on it. We'll see if it works out. I think I guess is there an opportunity I could see him being good? Yes, because he did get a lot better in college. That being said, like if you judge his receiving core he had at Oregon compared to the talent he was facing, it's a much difficult situation. He's going to have to throw the ball down the field a lot more. And I'm just not as convinced he's going to be able to do all that as much. So we'll see if it works out for him in Denver. Sean Payton obviously fell in love with him. And, Sean Payton knows a lot more about football than I do. That's not a hot take. So we'll see if it works out for him. And I have my skepticism, but it could. This was an okay draft. I don't know. Like they clearly tabbed the quarterback. I do like Jonah Ellis. Troy Franklin I thought was okay. I wasn't a big fan of Estime, but he's a bigger back. We'll see if it works out, and it's the 5th round. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't thrilled with this draft, but I also am not the Bo Nix guy.
Right. With Bo Nix, I do have to say, I'm not sure I fully understand the logic of like people saying, well, Sean Payton's scheme, it's all about, throwing passes underneath. You don't have to throw too high of difficulty passes. And Bo Nix, he never threw any high difficulty passes in college. So therefore, he should be the guy. I think I would rather the guy who was good at throwing higher difficulty passes and just make it easier on him instead of the guy who didn't have to do that. But, we'll see how it works out. Again, I like Bo Nix more than you. Who knows? Quarterbacks are weird.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, they also, all the other quarterbacks were taken at that point, and you knew Bo Nix wasn't going to last till the next pick. So if you feel like he's your guy, then he's your guy. I think the tough thing is, like, we don't know what the conversations were. We don't know what's offered, that kind of thing. But, like, it did feel like a trade back situation, right?
I think if you're going quarterback and it's 12, you have your quarterback. Like, at that point, like, I don't think you need to gamble. If you like him enough to draft him at 12, draft him at 12.
Yeah, I guess. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah,
Rooting for you, Bo Nix.
Yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I want everyone to succeed, just not against the Patriots.
Okay. I don't know if you're rooting for. I don't know if you want everyone like on a team like the Denver Broncos to succeed.
Why not?
Well, you guys played in like 18 different conference championship games.
Oh, that was just Peyton Manning. I don't have any ill will towards the Broncos. I guess there was a Jake Plummer year, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't
it's
just
okay.
Peyton, mostly Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
The Raiders had a great draft. They did not go quarterback. Maybe they wanted one, but I think there were reports they were trying to trade up. But I think they were expecting to get Penix, and then the Falcons screwed that up. So, hey, Brock Bowers, Jackson Powers-Johnson, two of my favorite, not my favorite prospect, but two prospects I really liked. Getting them later than we thought they would go. Some weird picks along the way. Definitely some like, wait, why did you do that? As we get further into the draft, but they nailed the top 2 pick. This is the win for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, they prioritized quarterback. It didn't work out. Mm-hmm. However, I mean, I don't think it's a crazy take to say they could have 2 all-pro picks with their top 45 selections, 2 of their top 45 selections. Like, I think those guys have all-pro potentials at their position. So I think those are really good gets. Obviously, first-round tight ends, you got to be a little bit patient on. But I do think Brock Bowers is a really good receiver for a guy he can take the ball out of the backfield. He does a lot of different things that I think are pretty creative. I'm excited to see what they're willing to do with him in this offense. So So yeah, I like those picks, and those two guys are probably going to define this draft. And there was definitely some question marks, like you said, but I mean, if those guys work out, I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I agree. All pro might be a little strong, but at least like Pro Bowl,
Yeah,
maybe
maybe
second team All Pro.
for who?
I don't know. I just think I mean, you got Creed Humphrey to deal with, you got Travis Kelsey to deal with. Like it's not so easy to go out and just get All Pros.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean Travis Kelsey's also not going to play forever. Like
Sure,
by the time Bauer's in his prime, I expect Kelsey to be kind of retired.
I guess so. Probably you might be right about that. But just in general, I feel like this happens all the time. Like, oh, this guy's going to be an All Pro. It's like, okay, not everyone can be. This
Yeah.
is what it's the whole top 5 receiver thing of like there's 20 top 5 receivers.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess the one thing is like the one thing about Jackson Powers Johnson, and I'm not criticizing it because I think it's the right thing to do more times than not, is he's probably going to play guard, right? Because their center was pretty good last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm drawing a blank on his name. What is his
Andre
name?
James?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so yeah,
And there was the tweet where Rappaport tweeted out that the Raiders called James ahead of time and said, "Hey, we're getting a center here, but don't worry about it. You're good. You're a guy."
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. What would be the best version of that? Like just some random like Devin White got called because the Eagles took Jeremiah Trotter or something. Don't worry, you're still our guy.
That would be good. Yeah, if someone signed like a cheap 1-year deal somewhere and then they call, that would be. Which would honestly make sense. Hey Falcons, call your quarterback that you just paid a bunch of money to, saying you're good drafting quarterback. Not that hard. The Saints. Had a great draft. New Orleans Saints. They with Talise Fuaga, whoever they liked, and of course they go with Kool-Aid McKinstry, who was guy I was raving over. Spencer Rattler. I picked 150. Sure, why not? You brought up if you have Derek Carr, maybe take a flyer. Well, that's what they did. So as a whole, really strong draft. They made my 7 winners list. I thought this was really the top 2 picks were really good.
Yeah, I mean that's a good draft. Some people had Fuaga as their second rated offensive lineman, so getting him as the 4th offensive lineman on the board.
Some people on this podcast did that.
Yeah, exactly. So getting him as the 4th offensive lineman for some is going to be awesome. I have him as 3rd, so getting him as the 4th offensive lineman I think is still pretty good. Kool-Aid McKinstry, it'll be interesting to see how he plays. Honestly, if you watched his junior tape, or his 2 years ago tape. I don't even know if it was his junior year. 2 years ago tape. If you watch that, you're probably thinking that's the best corner in the draft. A lot of people had speculated that this past year he was kind of mailing it in because he knew he was going to get drafted. Maybe it cost him a little bit. We'll see. But I do think he is really talented. And like you said, he is incredibly smart at the position. And I actually really like Spencer Rattler at 150. I continue to say outside the top 5 guys, I think at least he has the arm talent and like the arm talent stuff and the physical gifts to say I'm willing to take a chance on that guy. We'll see how it is. I mean the I don't know. It's insane what we hear about these guys sometimes. Like the Netflix thing is dictating his draft stock from when he was 17. It's just insane. It's insane. I'm not like in love with Spencer Rattler, but I think he's more talented than some of the guys who went in front of him.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the what was it like Myles Garrett like played the violin or something and people were concerned about that. Like some of the I forget.
Does he like football? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's worked out okay so far for him. Let's move on. Indianapolis Colts pick 15. They picked Le'Veon Latu, which I liked. I think a lot of people would have gone with Dallas Turner. I had Latu as my number 1 edge rusher, so I'm not the only one who felt that way at least. And then Adonai Mitchell, who he wasn't my favorite prospect, and I thought projected to go 28th. I thought that would have been a little high, but they get him at 52, which I thought was really good. Another one of the teams that had some I thought weird picks as the draft went along, but again, top 2 picks I thought were very strong.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Latu a lot too, and Latu a lot too. That's a good one. Anyway,
well done. Well done.
Yeah. 15, I think he's good value. Obviously, there is some injury risk there, but he is super talented, and he had some of the best like technique stuff that I think you could have in this draft too at the spot. So I think that's a good pick, and I could see him having an immediate impact for this team. And then, yeah, like you said with Mitchell, like I wasn't in love with him as a prospect, but I mean, there are people there were people who loved him as a prospect. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there were people saying he should go like top 10, which I thought was a little insane. And yeah, I think getting him at 52 is probably pretty good value. And I would, I think the teams that went doubled up on receiver this year did a good job too, because there's a lot of them and there's a lot of good ones. So I'm okay with them taking a couple receivers, loading up in the defensive backfield. I thought they did a good job overall.
Yeah, a lot of things made sense. Let's move on. Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks, who another team with a really strong first pick, Byron Murphy. I like the Christian Haynes pick as well. They drafted. They're definitely a team that went out and they kind of got athletes, hoping they can kind of maybe mold them a little bit into being these star players. But again, Byron Murphy pick I thought was really good. Pick 16, he was top 10 on my board.
Yeah, he was my highest ranked defensive player. So getting him at 16, I think, is great value. I think he could be an awesome defensive tackle in the NFL. And I thought that was a great pick. And that's mainly what I'm defining in this draft is that pick specifically. So I thought that was a really good value. And they could get a high impact guy with that selection. So I thought that was a fantastic job.
Well, he was the NFL's second highest rated defensive player, I guess, because Leo Latu went one pick earlier, and that was the first first 14 picks were all offense.
Crazy, just crazy.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was. I mean, it kind of makes sense though. I mean, like, there's a couple guys I probably would have picked earlier, but like, it wasn't like that. Like, I get it, and it's an offensive league at this point.
It is an offensive league, and it's much more prioritized, and it should be more prioritized. All that kind of stuff. There are a couple defensive players I thought could have gone a lot higher.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The Bengals were next on this list. They picked at 18 because the Vikings at 17 we already talked about. They got Amarius Mims, who I thought was a fine pick. Like, they needed a tackle. That's right around where I think it's reasonable to take him. They went with the risk of Jermaine Burton at pick 80, which is kind of this boomer bust type pick, but they had a decent amount of picks, so I don't hate it whatsoever. I feel like kind of Jermaine Burton, if he hits his ceiling, could be like a T. Higgins replacement, and like if it flames out, then whatever, it is what it is. So as a whole, I would say this is a maybe not like a oh my god what a great draft, but like just like a solid draft.
Yeah, you got Steelers written on the banner, by the way, not Bengals.
Oh, whoops.
There we go.
Sorry, Steelers fans. I didn't mean to troll you by making for just people who are skipping ahead and then think my bad.
It's all good. Let's see here. Bengals. Yeah, I like Mims. I do like him a lot. I think he might have been honestly the most physically gifted offensive lineman in this draft. I mean, he's incredibly powerful. So I think he could be awesome at the position. And this is a team that's kind of rotated a lot of offensive linemen, it felt like, over the years. So getting a tackle, I think, could really start and be impactful. I thought it was really good. Beefing up that interior of the defensive line, I thought was important. I'm not a Jermaine Burton guy. I think I can't imagine a lot of people who watch college football liking Jermaine Burton, if we're being real. And that's probably biased. Just not a fan. But we'll see. Yeah, sure. There is talent there. But yeah, I mean, I thought the first two picks I thought were prioritizing need, and I thought they got good value even while prioritizing need. So I thought they did a good job there.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the Rams. The Rams, who are usually a team we're talking about at the end of the show, just like, oh yeah, who are the teams that didn't have first round picks? All right, the Rams. No, they have a first round pick. They still had, I believe they ended up with 10 picks, I want to say, 10 or 11 picks. I can't count quick enough, so we'll just go with around there. Listen, you kind of talked about how, hey, you can't replace Aaron Donald with one guy. You got to replace him with multiple guys. So the Braden Fisk and Jared Verse selections were that. I don't know why we needed to go with Blake Corum at pick 83. Not a fan of that, but as a whole, again, it's the Rams. They're doing what they do, getting a lot of picks and, replacing, trying to replace one of the best to ever do it with multiple players. So, yeah, again, kind of a hit or miss draft, but I would say a good draft. It's the Rams draft. I would say it's good.
Yeah, I thought they did fine enough. I mean, I agree with you with the Corum thing, especially like Kyron Williams was good last year. And then they get somebody else. Like, I feel like I'm not mistaking that they got another running back. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was a reach, but yeah, like you said, I thought they did a good job overall, and I like Verse. I thought he's going to be really impactful. This was one of the few picks in our mock draft that was actually right.
Okay, there we go. We got
I picked
one.
Jared Verse here. They got it, baby. Let's go. But it could be interesting. I'm curious to see how they went heavy on defensive line. Like you said, you got to replace, it's like I said, it is the Moneyball line. You got to replace Aaron Donald in the aggregate. You're not getting one player to be Aaron Donald. But I do think a couple of these guys could be pretty interesting depending on how they're used. Tyler Davis was a monster in college, and he's a little slightly undersized, I think, for a NFL defensive tackle, but he's pretty good football player, if you ask me. And getting him in the 6th round, I think it's worth the risk too. So, I think a couple of these guys are going to turn out, and I think Verse is good enough to really bet on like that too.
Yeah, Scoot points out, Boston Scott made the list. I'm going to be honest, I'm not kicking myself for not realizing Boston Scott went to the Rams.
Yeah, that's probably right. But I don't know. Like, Quorum's an interesting player. We talked about it during the offensive rankings things. Like, he's just good, but there's not really anything like physically or like anything that stands out on tape. He's just good. So we'll see.
And the Rams have, they don't care that much about like the athleticism and stuff. They just want good players. So which, it's resulted in some misfires, and it's resulted in some really good picks as well. So we'll see what happens there. The Steelers, who I put on the screen earlier, are now actually the team we're going to talk about. Their top 4 picks were all ranked in the top 51 according to the consensus big board, with Troy Fontenot, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, and Peyton Wilson. Those are 4 guys I could see being starters for them. So for a team that didn't have like a ton of draft capital, it's hard to view this as anything other than a great draft.
Yeah, I thought this was really good. And, we said this wasn't a great linebacker draft, but Peyton Wilson was my number 1 guy for that position. So I thought they did a good job. They do have a lot of linebackers as it is, especially as they got Patrick Queen in the offseason. But I think that's really good value still where they drafted him. So, could be an impactful player right away. Roman Wilson, I think, is pretty good. I really like these players. And like you said, all of these guys could be starters pretty quickly, I think, for this team. So I thought they did a really good job there. This is one of the better drafts overall.
It's funny because I was kind of like lower on like all of these players, but like so that the NFL was also lower on all of them to the point where I ended up liking them when they finally got drafted.
Yeah. I mean, they fell to the right positions. I mean, we even had Fontenot in our mock draft going a little bit lower, but like it wasn't going to be controversial to me if he went top 20.
Yeah. And like, Peyton Wilson, I wasn't crazy about when people were talking about him as like maybe a 1st rounder, and same thing with Roman Wilson. But like getting him at 84 and 98, like that's just great value.
100%. Yeah, I didn't think any of these linebackers were 1st round talents, honestly. But him falling that far as the guy I thought would still be the number 1 linebacker is that's really good business.
Well, let's go to the Miami Dolphins, who I think people were wondering, where are they going to go with this? What's their plan? They decided to go Chop Robinson, who I really liked. Not everyone was as crazy about, but I liked him coming out of college. The Patrick Paul pick I thought was solid. And even Jalen Wright, I'll defend a running back pick because I think he's a really good running back. Should fit that team really well. And like Devon Achane, can't stay healthy. So getting another guy makes sense to me. They were someone who drafted a player who was not on the consensus big board, which has like over 600 players. So that's not ideal. But other than that, I thought this was I like most of these drafts, to be honest, Kyle. I didn't think there was a lot of, there was a few dumb ones, but most teams did pretty well.
Atlanta. Anyway, who was not on the consensus big board?
Patrick McMorris was not on there.
Interesting.
They picked him 198 safety.
Doing someone a favor, probably.
I guess so, maybe. Probably just a special teams guy, or I don't know. It happened. There's always a couple guys that aren't on the board that end up there. It's not an exact science.
Yeah. So we'll see on Robinson. I was a little bit lower on him than you were. I'm curious to see if he can develop some what feels like a little more pass rush moves. I think he's very quick. He's very athletic. So I think it could be an interesting player if he continues to develop. So I think that's a good pick. And like you said, I think Jalen Wright could be a good running back in the NFL. So getting him in the 4th round, I think, is pretty good value. I even think going into like the 6th round, like Malik Washington, I think could be a NFL player one day and a pretty good starter in the slots position. So getting all those guys, I think this is a good haul. I thought they did a pretty good job overall. And this was also, I think, one of the stronger drafts, even if I'm not a huge fan of Robinson.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty well done. Want to move on? I don't have too much to say about them.
Yeah, no, let's keep moving.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Let's move on. The Eagles are, doing what the Eagles do, getting the players that, that happen to fall. They're not afraid to say, if someone's falling in the draft, it seems like the Eagles are always the team that scoops them up. Quinyon Mitchell projected to go 11th. They get him at 22. Cooper DeJean projected to go 18th. They get him at 40. So yeah, even guys like Jeremiah Trotter and Johnny Wilson were projected to go a lot earlier than they ended up going. So another like it's this is a really strong draft. It made my 7 winners list when it was all said and done. I'm largely due to the top 2 picks and position of need. They needed corner help, and they were able to get some, multiple corners. And I think the Gene and Mitchell do very different things. I don't think it's like, I think there's room for everybody here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think Mitchell could compete for a starting cornerback job on this team right away. I thought they did a really good job with that pick. People, I heard a bunch of mocking because it was like, oh, they only take consensus big board guys now, and it's like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah,
like I don't know why that's considered a negative now. It's not like these people don't know what they're doing too.
Right.
But anyway, I think Mitchell could compete for a starting cornerback job. I think he's really good. He was in my top 10 of my class in general, so I think that makes a ton of sense. DeJean, I agree with you. I could see him playing safety for this team, honestly. I think they need help kind of all over the secondary, and I think he's unique enough that he's going to play all over the secondary throughout his career anyways. So I could see him playing safety pretty early. And yeah, I mean, I thought these were all really good picks. I like Trotter. Johnny Wilson, I wasn't as big of a fan of as you because I think he drops everything. But I understand taking the chance on the guy who's like 6'7" with pick 185. So I completely understand that. And even a guy like Will Shipley, I think, is a sleeper. So I thought they did a really good job with this draft and pretty strong overall. So yeah.
Yeah. What I liked about Johnny Wilson was he could be someone that maybe, isn't a finished product, but maybe you could figure out a way to have, place him in an NFL offense. The Jacksonville Jaguars did that with all of their selections, as they are once again, they only care about athleticism, Kyle. They don't care if you could, I'm convinced they don't even watch film. They just go to the combine.
It might be that. It could honestly be that. But to be fair, like I like Brian Thomas for them too. Like I think it's a good pick. I think they needed a receiver. I think they needed speed, and they got both of those in one selection.
No, the Brian Thomas pick I thought was great. Like that one, and they were able to trade back to get him. Like that, it was some of the other picks I wasn't crazy, but it's just like I just view drafting differently than the Jaguars do. Like if you're gonna just go out and reach for players that are like freak athletes, like then they did a good job. Like well done, 10 out of 10. But like that's not what I would have done.
Yeah, eventually you just need good football players too, and I mean we'll see if it works out. It obviously, I think you could look at the history of their selections and say it's not always a perfect science to do it that way. So we'll see what happens in Jacksonville this year, but I did think they got a couple good players still.
Yeah, again, it's every team gets better during the draft, right? Like there is no real loser, except
unless you're Atlanta.
Yeah, they're the losers. Yeah, they're the real loser. The Lions traded up to 24. Which Kyle, why didn't we think they would do this? I don't know why. I didn't see anyone suggest the Lions would trade up to the 24, which it made total sense because there was a few corner needed teams right ahead of them. We all know they need corner. I don't know why none of us thought it, but they trade up. They get Terrion Arnold. Also draft Ennis Rakestraw Jr., which is smart because you need more than just enough corners to start. You need so good job by that. Against some weird picks, they drafted Manu, the offensive lineman, who is projected to go undrafted with pick 126. So that's a bit of a reach, but I guess other than that, this was a pretty strong draft. And even a couple of their picks, like Christian Mahogany was supposed to go 102. They get him at 201. So that had maybe some steals later on, and the top 2 picks. This also made my top 7 winners list.
Yeah, I think I like their bottom 2 picks more than their middle 2 picks, but
yeah, that might be true. Yeah,
maybe you just weren't churning enough University of British Columbia tape. Did you ever think about that?
Maybe it's I'll be honest, I did not think about that.
Yeah, I think that's a huge letdown by you. So got to do better. Awesome. Got to tune into those UBC games.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. I think that they did a good job at the top of the draft too. I wasn't crazy about Rakestraw, but I think he's a good zone corner. They run his own defense. I think he makes sense. And I think Terrion Arnold makes sense because he's an incredible athlete. So I thought they did a good job there. They went up and got the corner they wanted. They got a good zone corner. I think they really needed to address that position because it's still probably the biggest weakness on this team. And they went ahead and did that twice.
Yeah. Let's go to their division rival. They, with their 25th pick, did not get a player that everyone was like, oh, how did they fall? In fact, the opposite. Jordan Morgan, who, that Packers fan on the broadcast who was like making like a shocked face. So poor Jordan Morgan with that. But like Edgerrin Cooper at pick 45, I like the Javon Bullard pick as well at 58. A couple head scratchers after that as well. In fact, they had quite a few in a row that made me scratch my head. 3 straight selections starting at 91 of players who went 80 spots ahead of when they were projected to go. So, again, not to say that that's the end all be all, but if you draft a guy at pick 100 who's projected to go pick 200, usually they play like a guy who is projected to go 200. So Jordan Morgan's fine. He's a developmental guy. It's a reach, but it's not like he's an awful prospect. But not my favorite draft.
It's not my favorite either, but when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, I don't really question offensive line picks.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think that I think they typically do a good job of identifying their guys at those positions. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if all those guys end up being good from the offensive line spot. We'll see. I like Bullard at 58 too. I think he could be a pretty quality safety on this team. I thought this team should have went corner. Honestly, I think that was my biggest thing is like, I understand the Morgan pick, but like with DeJohn there, like I probably would have taken him honestly, because I know that they switched the defensive coordinators and, they still drafted Eric Stokes pretty highly a couple years ago, but I just haven't seen enough consistency at that position to just say, oh yeah, defensive coordinator switch is going to fix everything now. I would have went more defensive backfield help.
They're another team that they like their athletes, right? Like it's the Quay Walker thing. It's the Eric Stokes thing. That's what they do.
Yep. And maybe they were hoping Arnold fell to them. Maybe that's why they rerouted there, because they could have been a team that was looking at Terrion Arnold as their guy. So he fits their kind of athletic build. It would have been interesting.
Yeah. The Buccaneers, my favorite football team. Graham Barton liked it. Position of need, kind of right around where he's supposed to go. I thought was good. We like Chris Braswell as well. I think he was kind of a bit of an underrated prospect. So getting him at 55 or at 57 was good. Tyreek Smith is interesting because he's such a Todd Bowles corner. Like he totally fits the scheme and everything, but also they're pretty good on safety. So when's he going to play? But get a good player that fits your scheme. I get it. And then Jalen McMillan, the wide receiver, I thought that was good as well. I like that Jason Light is trying to still get that third receiver spot up. I didn't love the Bucky Irving pick, but his name is Bucky and he plays for the Bucs, so I guess that works out. Again, not the flashiest draft, but I thought a solid one.
Yeah, solid draft. I agree. I guess my one question, you said you like Barton around where he's supposed to go. Is he also playing
Tyke Smith, not Tyreek? I always say Tyreek instead of Tyke. Tyke Smith, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. If you're going to go interior offensive lineman, I guess my one question for them, it really kind of just depends on what you prefer. But I thought Jackson Powers Johnson was not only the best interior offensive lineman, but the best center, which is probably Tampa Bay's biggest need on the offensive line since Ryan Jensen's situation. Were you a little disappointed it wasn't Powers Johnson in that spot?
I would have rather Powers Johnson. Barton was the number one consensus center, so I wasn't shocked. But yeah, I would have preferred Powers Johnson.
Yeah, I think I would have too. So that was my only kind of critique. But at the same time, if they like their guy, they get like their guy. So I can't criticize it too much. But yeah, I mean, some interesting draft picks. We'll see if it works out. Braswell's also an edge guy. They needed another edge guy. I think those all make sense. It would be interesting to see how that plays out, though.
Yeah, let's move on to the Cardinals Cardinals. The Chiefs. The Chiefs are next on the list. Kyle, I did say I like Xavier Worthy. I think it's a good fit. I do think the hype has gotten a little out of. I heard people like, oh, there we go. Tyreek Hill 2.0. It's like, well, okay, hold on. He's there's things to like about Worthy for sure. But it's not like the Chiefs. And I keep hearing people say like, "Oh, the Chiefs, we just know they're going to make this work out. They always make their wide receiver picks work out." And it's like, what are you talking about? Like they've had plenty of misses. That being said, I like the pick, so I'm not going to let people getting overhyped about it like change my. But this was actually, I thought, a really strong draft. Like, Kingsley Sumatea, the selection, which is, I mean, he's totally just the athlete that you're hoping you can mold. Like his hands are terrible, but if you can get that down, cousins of Penei Sewell, found that out today. So I was making a film study on him, doing the research, found that out. Yeah, so and it's a lot of other really strong picks I thought throughout this draft. So yeah, this actually, I believe they were just making my list, but they did also make my list of my top 7 winners.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I like a lot of their picks, like you said. I think Hicks is a mean safety. He could provide some physicality there. Like you said, I like Kingsley too. I think that those are some interesting picks. My one thing with Worthy is like he is very injury prone. I wouldn't be shocked if this is Kadarius Toney 2.0, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he's really good too. He is a game changer. He is super talented. Like the interesting thing for me when it comes to Kansas City is so they've identified this position as like the Tyreek Hill position, right? That we want as much speed as possible in the field at all times, and maybe that is the right answer. But wouldn't you feel like a guy like Ladd McConkey would be awesome in this offense too? Like for different reasons than Xavier Worthy. Like I feel like he's also a guy that would really thrive with Mahomes and just his ability to get open all the time in sort of like a Kelsey receiver style, right? Like I just thought that would have been a better pick. I think he makes sense for them.
I think they don't have a deep threat right now. Well, Andy Reid's always loved speed. I mean, that's always what he's been cared about, and they don't have a deep threat. But like, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like when he's going up, when you run a 4.2, you're going to be able to get open in college. In the NFL, it's going to take more than that. Like we saw with John Ross. Like it's just, it's a complete projection of how much they trust his ability to be able to develop and get a full route tree.
Yeah. He's also a little more twitchy, I think, than like John Ross was. Like John Ross was a vertical threat. Xavier Worthy, I thought, did a lot more at Texas and, ran some underneath stuff. I think he has a little more to his bag. So I could see it working out still. I'm just interested because I think a guy like, yeah, they don't have a deep threat, but I just thought a guy like Ladd would have been really interesting and fascinating to see in this offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And they did get a tackle though with the Chiefs, which was they desperately needed. So we're able to sort of stay afloat here. Let's go to Cowboys. Pick 29. They get Tyler Guyton there, and really in general, seemed like they kind of went after another team went after a lot of athletes. They got your favorite player in this draft, Marshawn Nealand, who was number 1 on your big board. What were your thoughts on this draft, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I really like that second round pick. I think he can be a really high impact guy. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think they looked at their needs and they prioritize it, right? I think the one thing is like you could have prioritized maybe a running back at some point, but we also said multiple times this is not a strong running back draft, so I'm not like too mad at it. But I thought they did a good job overall, and like you said, they prioritized the guys they really needed and went ahead and got those guys.
And they added Ezekiel Elliott back. He's back.
There you go. All right. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Again, the Cowboys have weirdly become a very boring team as of late. We always talk about the Cowboys like, oh, what crazy move are they going to do next? And it always just like draft an offensive lineman and like
it pretty much hasn't been anything since CeeDee Lamb, right?
Yeah, and even that wasn't like. I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't like that like crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree. So
it's just funny. I think we always talk about the Cowboys like, oh, we know they're Jerry Jones is cooking up something wild, and never, no, like it's like not happening.
The funny thing about Jerry Jones is like they've actually done a good job of like accumulating and developing talent lately. Like, yeah, it is a talented roster. It's just they lose in the playoffs. Yeah, and they hire Mike McCarthy.
Right. Yes, there is that. Baltimore Ravens. So we have 5 teams left. They picked at 30.
Holy
they got
shit.
Nate. What's that?
I said, "Holy crap! We still have 5 teams."
Oh yeah, no, we spent way too long early on, but whatever. It's a fun show. Maybe I think in the past we've split this up into 2 shows. Might be better. A lesson for next year. Some strong picks. Nate Wiggins was really good. Some head scratchers as well. The kind of seemingly, beginning part of the draft was a lot of guys who were on the right side of the consensus big board. Then later on, kind of the wrong side. TJ Tampa, I wasn't as crazy about as a top 50 selection, but like 130, that feels like a steal. at that point. So yeah,
Yeah.
some ups and downs, but again, a very Baltimore Ravens draft.
It's a very Baltimore Ravens draft. I agree. I thought they did a good job. And like you said, if you're going to be if you're going to be right on the consensus big board for half of your draft, I'd rather it be the first half compared to
Sure,
the
yeah.
second half, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's another one where I maybe would have went Dijon over Nate Wiggins, and I think this would have been a really interesting team to use a player with Dijon's talent because he's just so versatile. But they also got a lot of versatile players already in their defense. It's not like they needed more of that. I do have some questions. Wiggins. It's not the biggest guy. We'll see if it works out. I don't know. He plays
It'll
hard,
work
though.
out. The Ravens drafted a corner. He's a corner. True. He's going for the Ravens. It's going to work out.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good draft. I think I don't understand Devin Leary at all, but outside of that, like, I'm not gonna. It's the 6th round quarterback, so why not take a guy you like?
And then they need a backup, so I guess I understand it. Yeah, 49ers. Picked at 31. They got Ricky Pearsall. Also drafted Bernardo Green. The Pearsall pick is interesting because he's someone that is very much a 49ers receiver. Like I went back and made a film study on him after he got drafted, and I'm like, oh, this guy is like, I see exactly why they drafted him because everything he does is what the 49ers do. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a reach for me. I thought there were maybe some better receivers on the board, but also he's probably going to fit that scheme pretty well. Didn't love some of the other selections. It wasn't my favorite draft, but wasn't a disaster either.
Are 49er receivers basically entering the territory of Green Bay offensive linemen and Baltimore cornerbacks?
Possibly,
you just say, it's probably going to work out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think though, because I mean, obviously Ayuk and Samuel were good. That Jalen Hurd I thought was going to be awesome, and he didn't work out. So not always, but yeah.
He also got hurt a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, that was his thing. He kept getting hurt.
So I mean, I can write that could be a tax write-off for me.
Sure, that's my excuse at least. I wasn't wrong. He just got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think San Francisco just does things a little bit differently than everybody else. So I think that's why you get some weird picks mixed in there. But yeah, I mean, I think that a couple of these guys are reaches, but it's another one where I wouldn't be shocked if they're good. So I do see the appeal to Pearsall with them. Good slot receiver, catches everything. He hardly ever drops the ball. I think he could be really good in this offense. I agree with you.
Yeah. 3 teams left. The Panthers. I didn't realize until now that I guess they did this right. They did all. Oh no, I think I left the Browns off the list. So I guess there's another team. But the Panthers, one of the teams that did not have a first round pick entering the draft, but ended up picking in the first round. They went out and got Xavier Legette, which is fine. The Jonathan Brooks pick is one I would usually criticize, but the Panthers need weapons. I understand it. I'm not going to crush that one. Jatavian Sanders, another weapon for them. Didn't love the Trayvon Wallace pick, but still enough. Again, they're helping out Bryce Young, doing what they can. They're the mindset is correct here. We'll see how well it works out.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how well it works out. Leggetti, Brooks, Sanders. Those are 3 picks. Those are 3 skill picks with their top 4 guys. Clearly, what we obviously viewed as their priorities. As far as Leggetti and Sanders go, they could be really fascinating players because they are terrific athletes that need to get a little bit better, but they did show a lot of flashes, right? Those are really athletic players. And I think if you watched Adam Thielen catch 90 balls for this team last year or whatever it was, they need more athletic players, So I think those guys make sense. Jonathan Brooks, if you saw him on the right game, he looked absolutely awesome at running back too. So I don't hate the picks. There are a few reaches, but like you said, these guys definitely needed some talent. I like Smith Wade too at round 5. I think he's had some big games in his career. So it's going to be interesting to see how those all work out.
Yeah, the Panthers traded up to pick 32 to get Xavier Legette, or Leggetti, however you say his name, seemingly to try to get the 5th-year option. That was something the Panthers were willing to do, I'm assuming, because they traded with the Bills, who the Bills got a receiver at 33. The Bills got Keon Coleman at pick 33. Everyone was mocking the Bills. Why are you trading with the Chiefs, letting them get a receiver? Well, because I kind of think they traded back and got a better receiver, Kyle.
Yeah, they might have. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Keon Coleman is one of the better receivers in this draft. I mean, he's really special. It's so hard to predict those contested catch guys, but man, can he catch everything? He really can.
Mm-hmm.
He might make 50-50 balls, 60-40. He's that talented in the air. So I think he could be awesome. I think it's a really good pick. I'm willing to bet on the talent there and see if it works out. So I like that pick. I like netting more assets too. So I think he could be awesome.
Yeah. What'd you think about the rugby player?
We'll see. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he was a 7th round pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, pick 221. He was on a consensus big board.
No, there you go. So he wasn't off the
653.
600. Six.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't hate all of these picks. I mean, I thought they did a good job. I mean, um, there's not a lot of very exciting picks, I would say, but
Yeah.
outside of Coleman. But I think that they did a good job of this team needed some help on the interior. They lost a lot of offensive linemen. They lost some guys on the defensive line. I think they needed to get a little bit stronger there.
Yeah. Let's move on. Two teams left. The Houston Texans. I liked their trading down strategy. I thought that was smart, trying to accumulate as much assets as possible. Although, didn't love every selection here. I thought they had a lot of not like bad selections, but just like maybe would have like to wait like 10 picks on like a lot of their picks.
Yeah. Felt like they could have traded down a little bit more, is what you're saying.
Well, I just or drafted different players. I thought there were
Yeah.
better players available most of the time. They on like the Kamari Laster pick. I like, but like projected to go 54, get him at 42. Like Fisher projected to go 78 to get him at 59. Kayan Bullock projected to go 87, goes at 78. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like some of those. It'll be interesting. I agree. There are some reaches there, but I mean, I do think Lassiter could be a pretty good player too. So
Yeah,
it's another one. It's not a lot of sexy picks, but I do think that they got they needed to beef up this defense, and I thought they prioritized defense well.
well, that's what draft evaluation is weird because it's like, like you got a player who's like I don't know, an 80 out of 100 when there was a player that was an 83 out of 100 on the board. So I don't love that. And then people will be like, but an 80, well, we got a guy who's an 80 out of 100. What do you mean you don't like it? Like it's like, well, yeah, I still think they're good players.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's like it sounds silly to say, oh well, he was 10 spots lower than what he was, but there could have been another player we liked a little bit more. So it's really tough when you start it's nitpicking at the same time, but it's not terrible, right? Those are
Yeah,
definitely
for
guys
sure.
I think could be players.
Yeah. Finally, the Cleveland Browns. Kyle, I'm sure you did a deep dive on the Cleveland Browns thing. They had 6 picks, and they selected. They kind of do the opposite of what these other teams do, of just like try to get like the good players. Couple of reaches early on, but kind of players that I still kind of like at the same time. So I actually like this draft. I thought that again they share a mindset more similar to what I have of like just try to go out and get players.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely go out and get players like Michael Hall. It definitely felt like a reach, but at the same time, like he is pretty good at like the one thing he does, right? Like he's a
Yeah.
pretty good interior pass rusher. So, if that works out, then he's probably going to play some downs. He's going to be a third down interior defensive lineman. Like
Yeah.
that's at least something that you can say, hey, that fills a need. And it's not like this roster has a ton of needs, honestly.
Right.
So I'm okay with stuff like that, honestly.
And when you trade away your first round picks, like you have to do the Rams thing. Like we have to just get contributors. We have to get players who can come in. Like we don't need stars. We need guys who can just be role players. Is there video games going on?
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, that was it. I was just saying, like, it's good to get role players who can contribute on cheap value when you go out and trade away your first round picks, like how the Rams were able to be successful for those years. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like even a guy like Zinter too is like, he probably goes higher if he didn't get hurt at the end of the year. So,
Hmm.
that could be a good player too to get in the long run.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, that is our show. Let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if you like audio only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline podcast. Should be available there. Bit of a long show, but hey, every now and then, we have stuff to talk about. Kyle, so real quick, we can do this live on air. Why not? We're not a professional show. We can do this. Next week I'm going to be in Wisconsin. I mentioned at the beginning of the show I'm going to be in Wisconsin. So, want to just skip a week and then go to 2 weeks from today and then do our quarterback rankings?
Yeah, we could do something like that. So we are skipping the 8th and then returning the 15th.
Yes, let's do that, and then we'll do a quarterback rankings. So quarterback rankings is always a fun show. We'll get extra time to prepare for it, and extra time to build a suspense.
Oh yeah, definitely suspenseful.
Mm-hmm.
I'll break news right now. I think Bo Nix is going to be low on my list.
Okay, yes, good. At least he's making it over Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's got that
Yeah.
going for him.
Kyle, I know we have to get out of here. Just real quick though, we should give our quick hockey thoughts. Lightning got knocked out. Not really to my surprise. Panthers are good. It's disappointing, but it is what it is. Better team won. What are you gonna say? How nervous are you about the Leafs situation?
Not too nervous yet. Let's just go win in their house. Super frustrating game 5 for sure. Did not look good the entire game. And then came alive a little bit at the end of the third period and in overtime, and had probably the best scoring chances until that final goal was scored. Trent Frederick had it on his stick, didn't get it over the pad. I think it was Coyle in the slot in overtime, had a great shot, didn't get over the pad, and then Toronto goes down and scores. So gotta bring some better energy, I think, next game.
I need it, Kyle. You have to know that all neutral fans are rooting for a game 7. I mean, that's either way. Either the Bruins blow a 3-1 lead or the Leafs lose another game 7. It's great either way for neutral fans.
Yeah, I'd rather just win in 6, to be honest. But We'll see. The good news is, at least with the good news is, like, for the Bruins, if like going forward is like we might have the best goalie in the NHL playoffs. So
yeah,
at least we got that going for us. We'll see.
Well, disrespect Shesterkin.
I mean, he's good too, but Swayman is playing well right now.
What about Joseph Wall?
I'll still take Swayman.
Okay, yeah, probably. At least, certainly against the Leafs, he's the best goalie.
Yeah, he's looking good so far. He's seen the puck well, so
yeah.
Hopefully that can continue.
Yes, someone saying Bob is better. Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit of a hot take, but it's hey, that's what we're here for. You stay to the end of the show to get our hot homer takes about about hockey.
I don't watch all of your other goalies. I just watch my goalie. So
yeah,
he's the best in my eyes.
Yeah, there you go. What about Omark?
He did fine.
Number two on the list.
He's the second best goalie in hockey. That's fine.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We do appreciate it. Thanks for everyone sticking with us for the longest show. I know most of you don't care, but we want to get out of here. So, yeah, we do appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.